I once read a book by Robin Schneider that said everyone gets a tragedy, that everyone's life, no matter how unremarkable, has a moment when it will become extraordinary. A single encounter after which everything that really matters will happen. Until I was late into my teen years, this didn't seem like a factual quote to me. I'd been living a life of privilege in which nothing had gone terribly wrong yet. I believed the author to be dramatic and overly confident until the day came that proved her words to be true. This is the story of my tragedy. I watched a man get hit by a car. It wasn't my car that hit him, but the news channel seemed to think it was. It wasn't my fault. I didn't cause the accident. At least I don't think I did. On January 4th, 2018, Deputy David Hack was struck by a passing car outside of Rochester Adams High School, but that's not very important yet. My day started out like any other, except it wasn't. I was genuinely excited to go to school for the first time in a long time, and it wasn't until I was a few yards away from the school when it happened. It happened so quick that I can barely remember the exact details. Laughter was in the air until it wasn't. The car was moving steadily until it wasn't. My mother always told me that when something like this happens, you can see your life flash before your eyes. Until this moment, I was blissfully unaware of what that truly meant. Within seconds of hitting the car, as I began to shake, I was on the phone with my mother, relaying what had just happened. Her gentle voice kept assuring that everything would be okay and that she and my brothers would be there soon to come help me. It was only a few minutes later that I called her back to let her know that Deputy Hack had arrived at the scene of the accident. As he asked me if I was all right and if I was planning on calling the police, I let him know that my hands were shaking, I was unable to use the telephone, and he gracefully told me that his partner would be there soon and she could help me. In this moment, he displayed a sense of kindness that I had never experienced before. My brothers arrived at my car at around 7:30 in the morning. There was a brief moment in which I believed that things may be all right. It was at this moment that my mother tried to drive up onto the sidewalk and momentarily got her car stuck in the grass. My eyes were no longer filled with tears of despair, but with tears of laughter. As her wheels caught solid ground and her car turned around, I saw Deputy Hack standing in the middle of the road, directing her to drive towards him. Suddenly, my mother was gone. 10 long minutes went by before I was able to get a grip on the situation and realize that my mother had been gone for quite a while. As I turned back around, I could see her cautiously walking down the side of the road toward the street where Deputy Hack had stood, directing traffic and instructing her to cross the road. What was once a non-moving road suddenly had a car coming full speed. As screams filled the air and headlights flashed before my eyes, my heart stopped. My mother, the greatest woman I had ever known, was hit by a car. Only it wasn't my mother. Time stopped, and before my mind could catch up to whatever was going on before me, every door to my car pushed open. My brothers and I were running towards the scene. As words were screamed all around me, I looked down and I froze, because there on the ground, outside another student's car, was Deputy Hack unconscious. Suddenly my mind was clear and my trembling hands were reaching into my pockets to call the police. That was when I heard her voice. Her voice is a voice I may never forget. As she asked me to relay what had just happened and where I was, she then asked me to go over to the scene and describe Deputy Hack's position on the floor. I had to take his pulse and relay all the information onto her before she let me know that ambulances would be on their way. I was then urged to go back to my car, and I sat there for many minutes. This is when I realized that when something terrible happens, the human reaction is to stare. So there I was, sitting in my car with my brothers for many hours, watching the scene unfold in front of me. My brother soon got out to help haul the kindest man I'd ever known into the back of the ambulance, and I forced myself to believe that everything was okay. As days went by and months passed, I began to fathom the emotions and thoughts left in my mind from that fateful day. As my biggest achievements to date occurred, high school graduation, getting into college, meeting lifelong friends, finding love outside my family and others. I realized that this accident was my tragedy, but not in a bad way. It was the moment in which I became who I was destined to become, and after which all of my most meaningful moments occurred. You see, there is no real life that is lived without tragedies. If you have lived a life without any setbacks, have you really lived? What may feel like the end of the world could lead to the happiest moments that you could ever experience. Tragedy is never sought nor well deserved, but with time it should be well accepted. The situations which bring you the most pain may lead to the greatest character growth that you may ever go through. And luckily for me, this situation came early, and it gave me the opportunity to change the way that I viewed my tragedies before my tragedies could change the way that I viewed my life.